In this episode, we talk about a rift emerging between Uttar Pradesh CM Yogi Adityanath and his party members post the Lok Sabha elections. We also talk about Nipah virus causing the death of a teenager in Kerala. But first we talk about the cause and the impact of the Microsoft outage that affected the entire world. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda and you are listening to 3 Things, the Indian Express news show. The morning of 19th July shook the world with a massive IT glitch that crashed computer systems globally. It was all caused by an outage in Microsoft's cloud services and related apps. This led to a blue screen of death flashing on the user's computers, suggesting a system crash. This incident led to disruption in banks, businesses, essential services like hospitals and travel, which has been cited as the most prominent consequence of this global IT outage. Airports in India, the US, Australia, UAE, Singapore, Hong Kong and Malaysia experienced chaos and confusion, with many seeing their booking systems fail, pushing their staff to manually check in passengers. To understand the cause behind this outage and how Microsoft is handling it, we have Indian Express's Bijin Jose joining us. Bijin, can you begin by telling us what exactly happened on Friday and how was this issue discovered?
So actually, the issue unfolded on late Thursday night in the US, which is early Friday morning for us. So it began with a lot of users from the central US region experiencing issues with their Azure services, which is their Microsoft 365 suite of apps were not loading. Most of these apps were like OneNote, OneDrive, Defender, SharePoint, and Windows, the Teams as well. So these apps were not working and people raised, issues on the internet. And when it comes to companies, Australian companies were the first to report about the issue that they faced in their interfaces.
And has the cause behind this outage been discovered yet?
As the hours progressed, firstly, initially there was no clarity on what exactly happened and what went wrong. So the whole blame was on Microsoft, saying it was all a Microsoft's fault that the cloud failure, which led to this chaos, because it was affecting a lot of sectors from, airliners to healthcare to several businesses. At the same time, on Reddit and several discussion forums, several users had shared this blue screen of death. So, which is essentially an error screen that Windows shows when your system crashes. So at that point of time, the conversation surrounded around CrowdStrike's involvement. So then the name tossed around that, okay, this was an issue that was started by a faulty update from CrowdStrike. So then towards end of Friday, the CrowdStrike CEO acknowledged the issue, said that, okay, he even apologized also. And it came to light that it was a faulty update on their software that led to, this whole crisis situation.
And Bijin, what is CrowdStrike exactly? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So CrowdStrike is a US-based cybersecurity company which was established some 10 years ago. It was founded by George Kurtz and 2 others. So what CrowdStrike does is that it offers cybersecurity tools, essentially in simple words, antivirus softwares to large organizations. So they don't sell it to individuals. It is all big-sized organizations. So these organizations rely on CrowdStrike's antivirus softwares or cybersecurity tools to, safeguard them from potential cyber attacks. And CrowdStrike in the last 10 years has grown monumentally because it's now a very reliable name when it comes to enterprise cybersecurity. So what happened was when CrowdStrike sent a faulty update, it actually impacted Windows systems. So, and that most of these businesses, airliners use Windows products for their interfaces. And that's how it mushroomed into a bigger crisis.
Right. Since you mentioned that CrowdStrike is a cybersecurity company, was this a cyber attack of sorts, and is the user's data at risk?
See, initially when the issue came to the forefront, there was this whole chatter about, okay, it is a cyber attack. There was some bad malicious actors behind this. But we got to know from CrowdStrike CEO itself he has categorically denied this is not a cyber attack of any sort. A data breach happens when there's a cyber attack. This is not even a security incident. It is just a faulty update that went horribly wrong and it just jammed the systems. So far, there is no evidence or no communication where it reflects that there was some form of data that was harmed. Because if you see in the last couple of hours, a lot of services have resumed. Even Microsoft's 365 suite of apps, they have eventually resumed their services. And if you look at global airliners, they have actually started operations again. So this is not a cyber attack. They've mentioned that the work is ongoing, and perhaps the biggest takeaway here is that, even a small update, we all have antivirus in our laptops and computers. Even a small update can cause, havoc globally. This is what we learned from this whole incident. And it also shows that companies that are into cybersecurity space should practice caution, and, there should be more accountability and responsibility on these entities.
And Bijin, what impact did this outage have worldwide?
So, see, the most obvious consequence of this outage was faced by disruption of international travel or any sort of travel that involved airliners. Because, if you see, several flights were reported to be grounded, delayed, or cancelled. Because after the glitch, these airliners were not able to print boarding passes or, do their daily routine activities like, printing passes, doing their onboarding passengers. There are so many activities that are involved and that require networks and systems in place. And most of these airliners today, they rely heavily on softwares that run on Windows. And this led to, we had issues with check-ins, boarding, and other critical operations, that surround our travel needs. So this glitch essentially led to delays, and we saw a lot of airliners, even the ground staff, struggling to manage the crowd. Another aspect of this, like when the Australians flagged the issue, there a lot of broadcasters had difficulty in, broadcasting their bulletins, their shows on time. Similarly, emergency services were also hit in countries like Australia, US, and UK, where, 911, all these intercom related activities were affected because since the systems were down. Microsoft in its latest statement has said that because of the issue, an estimated 8.5 million Windows devices were affected, which is actually less than 1% of all Windows machines around the world.
And if we talk specifically about India, what kind of an impact did the outage have here?
So the IT outage led to significant consequences in India as well when it came to the aviation sector. Similarly, we saw a lot of Indigo flights from Goa, Chhattisgarh, Kolkata. They were cancelled, and there were many flights that were delayed. Even towards the end of the day on Friday, the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, CERTIN, issued an advisory linking to the outage to a recent CrowdStrike update. So this led to the blue screen of death error. In India, the main consequences we saw was with the aviation sector. And RBI mentioned that there were some banks that were momentarily disrupted, but then they instantly swung into action and they were restored because there was no major losses or major disruption that affected India apart from the ones that we saw with the airlines.
And Bijin, what did Microsoft's CEO Satya Nadella have to say about this situation?
See, for hours together, there was no official confirmation or no official statement put out by Microsoft. But once, even CrowdStrike CEO apologized or gave his version of the incident, Satya Nadella shared a post on his X account saying that, okay, this issue was whole because of this CrowdStrike update that went wrong. And in his post, he assured that they're working closely with CrowdStrike and, to help all these affected customers across industries. And it's still ongoing because the issue has been resolved partly, but it is still underway right now.
Next, we talk about the impact that the Lok Sabha elections loss is having on the Uttar Pradesh BJP. Post the Lok Sabha elections, signs of dissent have been emerging in the BJP's Uttar Pradesh unit. The BJP's tally fell from 62 out of 80 seats in UP in 2019 to just 33 in 2024. The Samajwadi Party left the BJP behind with 37 seats, and the Congress won another 6 in alliance with the Samajwadi Party. A rift seems to be emerging between Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath and his party members. Deputy Chief Minister Keshav Prasad Maurya has made comments that have been seen as a veiled attack on Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, suggesting that he was ignoring the party workers and running the state through bureaucracy, while Adityanath blamed overconfidence for the electoral reverses in the state in the Lok Sabha elections. To understand these recent developments and their impact, we have Indian Express's Maulshree Seth joining us. Maulshree, we saw that the BJP suffered a loss in UP in the Lok Sabha elections. So can you begin by telling us what impact of this loss can be seen in the state and in the affairs of BJP?
See, while BJP was able to form a government at the center, in UP, the results that it got were not as they had expected. Because having being able to won majority of the seats in past two Lok Sabha elections, this time the majority of the seats went to the SP and Congress. So till for about a month or so, they were contemplating and all those things. But in past 15 days or so, we have seen that the impact of the results have started coming into beat the people, the sitting MLAs or the legislators, or even the ministers is speaking out against their own government. And there have been some reports of rumbling within the organization as well. But what we are witnessing in past few days or so, it's mainly what has been seen is the government as well as the organization. So basically, the difference between the organization and the government, which is now surfacing. Many within the organization are considering government as a separate entity, while some within the government are alleging that there was overconfidence of the cadre, which resulted into the results. So what has happened after the results is that these kind of talks, which are not there, unlike in the past, they have started coming to the fore now, and people are openly speaking about it in the public, whatever they're feeling against the government or against the cadre as well.
Are we seeing a rift in the leadership between CM Adityanath and his party members?
See, Chief Minister has everything came out and open. Last week, there was the working committee meeting of the party in which the national president, JP Nadda, was also there. He was part of it. Apart from that, Chief Minister was there, Deputy Chief Minister, and party cadre was part of that meeting. In that meeting, we saw that the Chief Minister, Yogi Adityanath, for the first time mentioned that how there was an overconfidence in the system, which kind of led to the results as they were. And after that, we saw that even one of the Deputy Chief Ministers, Keshav Prasad Maurya, so he went on to say that organization is bigger than the government. And he made it a point to repeat it afterward. And he went on to say that organization was always bigger than the government and it would always be in the future as well. So that kind of led within the organization, when it was from the dais, it kind of left the feeling that there was something not right within the government and the organization that was there. Even though Yogi has not said anything openly, neither has Keshav Prasad Maurya. But the instances that have been there, like Keshav Prasad Maurya has not been seen in some of the government meetings in the past. Even in the cabinet, most of the time he's not part of it, cabinet meetings. These series of events kind of led to the talks of rumblings within the party and the government as such.
And Maulshree, what do the other party members and the party brass have to say about the current situation?
See, what has happened, even in the past, before the election, we saw that in between there used to be some leader or the other who would blame the officials of the government, saying that the officials are not considering the public representatives. They are not giving due respect to the public representatives as they should be. And these talks were always there. Once for a while, some or the other leader would come out and open and said. But what has happened now is we have seen it started with Union Minister Anupriya Patel actually writing a letter to Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, where she talked about how she felt that there was a kind of anomalies in the implementation of reservation on ground in the government jobs. Then we saw many legislatures. There was former Minister Moti Singh, who's a very senior leader. He, from a dais, actually went on to say that the kind of corruption that he's seeing right now on ground, be it at the tehsil or the police station level, he has not seen in 42 years of his career. Then we saw some of the legislatures also coming out in open, and they are basically targeting the officers. So by officers, whatever they are saying, then we saw one of the ministers who's not a BJP leader, but he's NDA ally, Nishad Party chief, but he's also minister in the state government. We saw that bulldozer has been the symbol which was associated with the chief minister in the past. And for the first time, we saw that there was somebody who was part of the government actually raising a question on the way the bulldozer being used again by the officers. They are not targeting directly anybody, but they're saying that officers misused it against the poor. Even though we saw that in the very next day, the DGP came out and gave a clarification on behalf of the government saying that bulldozer has not been misused on the poor and it is just being used on the illegal encroachment as such. But since all these are coming out in open now, so people can see, and it has kind of also given the opportunity to the opposition to raise these issues. And because everything is in open now and it's very evident, so opposition is also not leaving any stone unturned to point it out in the public that how differences are coming up within the ruling party.
And Maulshree, has this impacted any policies or programs of the government as well?
We can't say that it has affected, but yes, we saw that in the recent past, there were two decisions on which were put aside by the government. One, there's an ongoing project, which is a Kukral River Rejuvenation Project, where the land has been encroached on both the sides of the river embankment, and that river is being revived. And as part of it, upon both the side, the government is clearing that ground. So there are various colonies which had come upon that land, most of these not authorized. So we saw the demolition that started from some of the colonies, and it was moving forward. But we saw that in last week, all of a sudden, the government decided, even the chief minister came out with the students, some of the locals met the chief minister directly. And after that, chief minister said that demolition is not going to take place as of now. And he even said that some of these houses were wrongly marked by the officers to be demolished, and he'll look into whoever is responsible, they'll be punished. So that kind of thing happened recently in Lucknow. Then we saw another decision. There was a digitalization of attendance of teachers, government school teachers, which was announced. And there was hue and cry all across the state. Teachers were opposing it. And then even we saw some of the people from the opposition parties also coming out in support of the teachers. So that decision has also been put on hold. So these were the two decisions that we saw in the recent past, which were taken by the government and then they were put on hold following the public outcry.
So how is the chief minister trying to get the situation under control?
See, if we talk about whatever is going on within the party, we haven't seen Chief Minister react to it. But as far as the government is concerned, we saw that he has directly taken control of the by-election on 10 seats that are due, even though the elections have not been officially announced by the Election Commission. But these elections on the 10 assembly seats is due because most of these seats have been vacated as the local MLAs have been elected as MPs except one. So he took the meeting of his own ministers and he has set the responsibilities of the ministers for each of these constituencies. And we saw that in many seats like Malappuram in Ayodhya, there are more than one ministers who have been deployed and they've been asked to camp there, resolve the public issues, whatever issues are there. They've been asked to camp, stay and just be there in those constituency and try to see whatever the issues are there of the public and connected with the government, basically act as a mediator between the government and the public in those regions. So we saw that he has kind of, till the time actually the party is yet to take decisions and the candidates, because after the elections would be announced, then the cadre would actually start working on it. But he has actually taken control of these things in his hand and he's actually going forward with it. So yes, that is one thing that we saw in the recent past.
You mentioned that the opposition is leaving no chance to talk about this rift and use it against the BJP. So what does the Samajwadi Party have to say about all that has been happening?
Samajwadi Party, which is the biggest opposition in UP and has kind of come at the second place at the center also after the recent Lok Sabha election. So SP Chief Akhilesh Yadav, we saw that he targeted the government as well as the party about the rumblings. He even alleged that the governance was being neglected because of these rift. He alleged that the fight for the chair was going on within the party. And we saw that yesterday he took a jibe at this rift and has kind of indirectly said that this is the monsoon season has started and anybody who comes with the 100 number can actually form the government. So SP is not leaving any chance to get back at the ruling party on these reports of rift within.
And Maulshree, how will these developments impact the political climate of the state in the upcoming time?
As the developments are taking place, yes, it appears it's not going to be a cakewalk for either of the two parties because even the Lok Sabha elections have just been completed, but still, be it the opposition or the ruling party, they have already started preparing their ground because SP thinks that they can regain Uttar Pradesh from BJP, while BJP is thinking of the ways and the means with which they can, whatever the results have been there in the Lok Sabha, to revert it back, especially get back the Dalit and the OBC voters to their count, while SP is thinking on the lines of retaining the vote share that they have got in the Lok Sabha and how they can continue it till the assembly election. And even if we talk about Congress, they are also thinking on, because their vote share has increased, they're hoping to take it forward as well. So the thinking is going on whether they should go ahead with the alliance and how it would work forward as far as the assembly election is concerned. So be it the ruling party or the opposition, everybody has started preparing for the assembly election. And they are working on the lines of how they can retain their vote bank or gain back the ones that they have lost in the recent Lok Sabha.
And in the end, we talk about a death caused by Nipah virus in Kerala. Yesterday, a 14-year-old boy from Kerala's Malappuram who had tested positive for Nipah virus died at a government medical college hospital in Kozhikode. Shaju Philip from the Indian Express reported that the state health department officials said that the teenager had developed a fever 10 days ago and on 19th July, he had been put on ventilator support at a private hospital in Kozhikode. On Saturday, the reports from the National Institute of Virology in Pune confirmed that the boy had tested positive for Nipah virus. He was then moved to the medical college hospital. According to Shaju, Health Minister Veena George told reporters in Malappuram that the boy had suffered a cardiac arrest at 10:50 a.m. and that he was declared dead at 11:30 a.m. She said, quote, "All efforts were made to save his life. Doses of monoclonal antibody were brought from NIV Pune on Sunday. A medical board had met on Sunday for administering the antibody." Unquote. People were advised to wear masks and a lockdown was declared in the selected areas under the Pandikar Panchayat, where the boy is from, and the nearby Anakayam Panchayat. And the health department has also opened a control room in Malappuram. In a previous episode, my colleague Shashank Bhargav had spoken to Indian Express's Anona Dutt, where she talked about how the Nipah virus spreads and its symptoms. Here is an excerpt from that conversation.
Anona, begin by telling us how exactly does one get infected by the Nipah virus?
So, Nipah virus is mostly a zoonotic disease, which means it infects animals. The Nipah cases that we see in Kerala, which has been reported this year and previously, is from fruit bats. So these fruit bats that are infected, they can leave secretions like saliva or excrement on the fruits, on the tree barks. And when people come in contact with these secretions, they can get the infection from there. Human-to-human transmission happens among close contacts like family members who are taking care of the sick. Or, there's also a possibility of infection through droplets in a closed environment. It's not, say, as infectious as influenza or COVID-19, which can very quickly spread through aerosolized droplets, but it still can happen.
And what are its main symptoms? How do we see it affecting the body?
So, Nipah virus initially presents with fever, but in severe cases, it leads to encephalitis, which is brain swelling. And it's, one of the characters which would lead you to suspect that it is Nipah. Thing with Nipah virus is there's just sort of, once you get the symptoms, a 2 to 3 day window when you have to manage the patient because the fatality of the infection is quite high. If we look at the trends in previous cases, 2018, I think Kerala had an outbreak where 17 out of the 18 people who were infected died. In West Bengal also, one of the outbreaks had 100% mortality. And another one had like a 60 to 70% mortality. So the mortality is quite high. Say if you compare to COVID mortality at the moment is about 1.2%. So you see the difference.
You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank Bhargav and me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.